So, first of all, thank you all for coming to Black Hat USA 2018. We're really excited that you're here, and I think you guys are in for a really, really great couple of days. My name's Rich, and I'm lucky enough to be part of a fantastic team that puts this show on every year. I'm really, really excited for what you're going to see today. But before we get started, could I get, by a show of hands, how many people are here for the first time at Black Hat? Wow! Wow, okay. The good news is that's why we created Day Zero. This show happens in 48 hours. It's really quick. There's a lot going on. And we realize that if you've never been here before, it can be completely overwhelming. So what we've tried to do is bring together some professionals who've been through this show before. They've presented, they've shown tools, they've learned all the tricks and tips to make this really, really a great experience. And I think what you're going to hear today is going to help you make the best of the next couple of days. So before I say any more, I'm going to get out of the way and let the people actually know what's going on, give you some really, really good tips. And we're going to start with Kimberly Price. She is the Open Source Security Program Management Lead. That's a long title. At Microsoft. And she's going to talk to you about plotting your personal agenda at Black Hat. Kim.
Thank you. So I appreciate that everybody raised their hands to say that this was their first Black Hat. How many people, it's your first time in Vegas? So my first time in Vegas was also my first Black Hat. It was 2003, and Black Hat was held at Caesar's Palace at that point. I stayed in a hotel called the Aladdin, which no longer exists. And on the map, it was a 1-block walk. That's easy. Nobody was there to tell me, you really don't want to walk that. It's really hot out. It's like walking in an oven. There wasn't anyone to give me these little tips that seem like, hey, we're adults. We go to the grocery store, we pay our bills, we got this. And you can figure it out on your own, or we'll help you with some of the tips that have helped us get through the years. The first Black Hat that I went to had 10 tracks. There were 5 rooms each day for a total of 50 talks. There were a couple thousand attendees. There was no business hall. There were no vendor booths. There was 1 vendor reception. Fast forward 15 years, we have 18 tracks, over 110 talks, 90 tools demos in the arsenal, 7 community workshops, hundreds of vendors in the business hall, networking events, meetups, parties. There's yoga classes. There's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Don't take this as me lacking your stamina, but you cannot do it all. So you've got to prioritize. And I just want to be sure you don't miss something that you just didn't even know was out there. So that's some of what I'm going to go through today. Black Hat has a mobile app to help you manage your schedule. If you like putting mobile apps on your phone, totally your call. If not, obviously the schedule's all online, you received programs. I would strongly encourage you to take some time tonight and think about what you want to see. There are some very helpful folks in the hallways wearing yellow shirts that make it really easy for you to ask directions. But the last thing you want to be doing is wandering around. This looks good this hour. I guess I'll go to that. Like, you want to have a plan. So who's here for some sort of professional development? Work, career? Yeah. Everyone is pretty much here for work. If you had your choice of going to a beach or going to a technical conference, you're probably here for career development and to build your skills. And as such, you should assume everyone here is technical. Even when you're walking around the business hall floor, just assume everyone here is technical, because we're all here for the same thing. And you probably have to write a trip report, attend some talks, demonstrate return on investment for your registration, hotel, airfare. But it's really, really important that you take care of yourself this week, because you can't get the most out of the conference if you run yourself into the ground in the first day. So I mentioned the folks in the yellow shirts. The conference is huge now. They're here to help you, and what's more, if you know, they're in twos, they're all over the place, they'll help you navigate the halls, find where you're going. And another quick self-care tip, don't skip your lunches. It's a great opportunity to network. But possibly the most important one is water. Who here has had their first nosebleed in the desert? Because it is a rite of passage. Drink water, drink more water than you think you need to drink in terms of water. Soda is not water. And if you're going to one of the dozens of vendor parties in the evening that have an open bar, drink more water, because all of these things are dehydrating you. It is over 100 degrees outside. It is heavily air conditioned inside, and you're gonna get dehydrated without realizing it. And it's a really, really quick way to end up in a bad place and unable to focus on the content that we're gonna have for you. And if you're looking for extra credit in the self-care category, yeah, there's places to eat all over Mandalay Bay. Throw a granola bar, some mints, chewing gum into your bag. It's just gonna make things a lot easier for you on the go to grab a quick snack and have that handy. If we're talking about going to a security conference and getting the most out of it, I suppose I should probably give you some security advice. But honestly, I can't tell you what the appropriate defensive posture is for you as an individual. I don't know your risk tolerances. I don't know how high value an asset you are for somebody to maybe want to actually burn their O-Day on. It's probably pretty unlikely, but maybe. I don't know. You really should have done this stuff before you got here, I'm sorry to say. The EFF has a great surveillance self-defense guide, but a few things: turn off your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, because it's gonna constantly try to ping for connection and you're gonna wear down your battery really quickly. So definitely take some steps and think about, do I need to log into this thing? Do I really, really need to? And if the answer is no, just don't do it. And go ahead and take some time and read over resources on how to go ahead and minimize your threat model, as it were. And of course, never take USB drives from strangers. It's kind of like free candy. It's never free. So let's talk a little bit about my picks for talks. Now, I mentioned there's over 110 talks, over 90 Arsenal presentations, 7 workshops. There's so much content. I can't tell you all of the things I like. There's dozens. I tried putting together a top 10 list earlier today. I'm currently up to 14. And one of those is actually 3 related talks, so technically 17. I'm just gonna go over a few here to highlight some of the gems I think that are in the schedule. Other people are gonna come up and talk to you a little bit about their favorite talks. Later tonight, I'm gonna start a minor Twitter storm and talk about some of the other ones I like. But take a look through the abstracts. The Content Advisory Board for Black Hat has worked really hard reviewing hundreds and hundreds of talks, and we can't accept all of the good ones even. We can only take a fraction of them, and we've worked with the speakers to make sure they're actionable and provide new and relevant and cutting-edge research, so your mileage may vary. If you are a malware researcher, my recommendations probably aren't going to be your jam, but here are the things that I'm excited about. Starting off, Thursday morning, 9 a.m. For people who are into SDL and enterprise, stop that release, there's a vulnerability. Christine Gadsby is the Director of Product Security Operations at BlackBerry, and this is if you're in a product security incident response team, products or applications, and you have to really have a framework for when do we pull the trigger and say we are not going to release this because there's a vulnerability, and how do we make that trade-off and decision. Christine's going to be sharing their experience at BlackBerry and how they prioritize native and third-party vulnerabilities in their products and services, and provide attendees with resources to help them make that decision in their own workplace. So that one is a 25-minute talk on Thursday morning. If you're in the network defender space instead of the product and application side of things, there is a talk Thursday also in the network defense and platform security tracks by Brad Giesemann. And this is all about detecting malicious cloud account behavior and talking about how to leverage the tools that are provided by AWS, Google, or Azure, and what those tools can do for you, how to configure them, what they don't do. So he's basically done a competitive analysis, and he wants to share those results with you and help you out with that. So that's another good talk that I liked. These two were the defense talks that I picked out of the hundreds of talks we have available for you. And I mentioned my bias is towards defense. I'm a blue teamer, defender, full life. So when it comes to offense, I'm not the best person to tell you what talks to go to. So I talked with another content review board member who is, and these are his recommendations. A brief history of mitigation. The path to EL1 in iOS 11. And this is an exploit development and reverse engineering. It is a 50-minute talk on Wednesday. And this is Chris Rolfe's #1 offense pick for people to go to. He's super excited about this talk and what it will bring to the table in terms of changing the way we look at exploit development in this space for iOS. So if you are into Mac and into exploit development, this is one to go to. And his second pick for offense is TL Bleed, when protecting your CPU caches is not enough. This year, we have seen a marked increase in hardware submissions, not just because of Meltdown, although there are quite a few talks focusing on speculative execution as well. But I think we're really seeing an uptick in people looking at how to hack and compromise hardware and chipsets. And this is another one of the fantastic talks in that space that is highly recommended. And Ben comes to us from VU University. We also have Arsenal talks, and we've got some Arsenal speakers coming up to talk to you a little bit in a few minutes. But I'm going to tell you my favorite Arsenal stuff anyway, because I'm on stage right now, and I can do that. We have Jeremy Long coming up to talk at the Arsenal. He's at Arsenal Station 9 Thursday morning. And what's nice about this is if you go to Christine's talk, right afterwards, you can go pick up Jeremy's Arsenal talk, and they're actually in many ways interrelated, because he's talking about dependency check as a tool to help identify vulnerabilities in your free open source libraries. So this is near and dear to my heart. As mentioned in the introduction, I'm the open source security strategy manager, program management lead, I don't know, let's throw more words in there, for Microsoft, and figuring out how do you manage the open source projects that you're using and republishing. And this is an open source tool that's available to you, so worth taking a look at if you leverage and use open source in your products and services. And then on Wednesday at Arsenal Station 3 is Hide and Sneak, an attack obfuscation framework. Michelle Hodges and Mike Hodges developed this to expand evasive pen testing capabilities. And who doesn't love a free open source tool to expand your pen test capabilities? This one sounded really fascinating, and while I am a defender, basically, I'm actually going to stop by this one because I think it sounds pretty cool and see if I can't learn a little bit more about what they've put together there. So that's just 6 things you can go to out of like almost 200 plus. And there's so many more. It just gives you a taste for the depth and breadth of content available. So, like I said, take a look through the talks, pick out what you want to go to, put them on your calendar so you get your little reminders. Make sure you put in what room it's in, not just the talk name, so that you get the pop-up telling you exactly where you're going when, or jot them down on a piece of paper. It sounds super basic, but putting in the time to organize your schedule ahead of time really helps when you're on the con floor, because you don't want to spend your entire time looking down at your phone or at your notes. Pick your head up, talk to people around you, because there is so much networking to be done at Black Hat. And the talks are valuable, absolutely 100%. But so are the conversations. Go up and talk to the speakers afterwards, ask questions, get their input, talk to the other people who are asking questions. The hallway track allows you to network, get perspectives outside of your realm of experience, and get that input. There are a ton of different things to do in terms of networking. If you are following Black Hat events on Twitter, you may have seen a tweet earlier today that after the day 0 presentations, there's a reception with tater tots. I'm ridiculously excited about the tater tots, I'm not gonna lie, but it's a great opportunity to hang out, talk with some of your colleagues in the field, find out what they're doing, where those synergies and interconnections are. There's Arsenal, Business Hall, Pony Awards. The Pony Awards are kind of the best and worst of security research in the previous year, and it's community driven. It's usually a pretty fun time. There's diversity receptions. There's Friends of Bill meetings both days during Black Hat, both Wednesday and Thursday. There's yoga each day. You can go see how the Black Hat NOC works. There's NOC presentations, peer mentoring, happy hours. There is so much great stuff to do here and engage with your colleagues. Now you may be wondering, what about the open bar? Those parties I hear so much about. How do I get invited to the parties? Well, things have come a long way in the last 15 years, from one party to dozens of parties, and there's a lot of ways to get into parties. Some of them are straight up advertised on the Black Hat website. You simply go online and you register. Some of them you can pick up invites at their vendor booth. There's a lot of different receptions and events. I would encourage you to find one that is consistent with the kind of work you do and the stuff you care about, so you actually enjoy hanging out and talking to the people. But there's tons of activities to do, both during the day and in the evenings. So, lots of talks, lots of hallway conversations. The expo hall is huge. Make sure you have time to wander around there a little bit. I'm sure, there's free pens and Post-it notes. Don't take the USB drives though. But my second to last piece of feedback is, feedback matters. Please, 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 fill out your speaker surveys after you attend a talk. Not just the ones that you thought were crap and you want to be like, oh, this was terrible. It's really easy to rant in feedback. If you go read Yelp, it's just people who are angry all the time. And so if you're gonna say this was the worst talk I've ever seen, explain why. Give the presenter something they can work with to do better next time. And if you see a talk that you think made your show, give that feedback too, and say why. Not only does it help the speaker do better next time, the Black Hat Review Board actually reads those and cares and tries to integrate that in future events. What's more, if you get a survey before next year, you might be thinking, how do they know what talks to put in what rooms? What happens if you book something in a small room and 4,000 people want to go to it? Well, we actually do pre-surveys. So, the data collection actually gets used to make the event better. So please, take the time, tell us what you think, and help us make it a better event next year. Okay, now we're really to my last slide. If you go through the next 2 days and you come out of it inspired and you say, hey, I'm doing cool stuff, I want to go talk about that, I want to engage with the research community. I want to engage with defenders. I want to go talk about what I'm working on and help other people see how they can do it too. Black Hat Europe, it's coming up. CFP is open now. I would love to review your talks. There's a bunch of resources on the CFP page to help you prepare a talk, descriptions of the talk tracks, examples of great CFP submissions. And so please, I would encourage you to submit. So that's it. I hope you have a great Black Hat.
Thanks, Kim. We just decided we're going to steal those slides as a tutorial because that's everything we wanted to say. So the next talk that I'm really kind of proud to be able to introduce is about building your career or your company in cybersecurity. And it's probably pretty hard to get somebody better than Chris Weiswol, who built his career as the CTO and co-founder of Veracode. So
thanks a lot, Rich. So, hi everyone. You know, like Kimberly asked for a show of hands, most people are here for some sort of professional development. Maybe you're starting out your cybersecurity career since this is your first Black Hat. Maybe you're, you know, in IT or a related field and you're interested. Maybe you're gonna think about, you know, I want to get a cybersecurity job. So I want to talk a little bit about what things that I learned that helped me along my path, and you know, sort of how I got to where I am today. So I just want to start off with a quick little bio of, you know, how did I get here? Because everyone takes a completely different path. You know, it's a field. A lot of the people I've met in this field have gone on non-traditional path to being here. You know, I started off as a geeky kid. In high school, I considered myself a hacker, but that was sort of phase one hacking. I didn't really think of hacking in the notion of it could be a career, right? It could be something I could do as my job, because this was a long time ago, and let's be honest, people didn't, it wasn't a profession back in the, you know, early 90s really. So I went off to school, I got a computer engineering degree, and then I got my first job as a software engineer. And I worked for a company called Lotus. You can see I have gray hair here. People with gray hair in the room know what Lotus is. No one else will know what Lotus is. It's not a car company. So I built software, business software, and I was, you know, quite happy, you know, doing that. And then after a few years, I don't know how it popped in my head, but I said, remember when I was doing that hacker stuff? I was on bulletin boards and exploring. That was fun. That was cool. Like, software engineering's okay, but I kind of wanted to get back into it. And I had sort of the phase two of my hacking, and I started looking, I'm really dating myself here, what are the local bulletin boards in the Boston area that are hacker related? Maybe I can meet some of the other hackers. And I found the 2600 meetup, and I went to that. And I sort of had phase two of my hacking career. And now I had a computer engineering degree. I was a software engineer. I was like, this vulnerability research is kind of cool. And I started doing that. And I decided, this is what I want to do. I want to do security. And I took a job as an IT security guy at a company called BBN. And I can't believe they hired me. You know, your first security job, you don't have any security experience. Maybe you have a certification. I didn't at the time. I just basically described what I like to do, and you know, I liked reverse engineering software, and kind of convinced someone that I could be a security person. And that's how I kind of got into it. Then I went on to become a consultant, did that for a while, and I focused on application security because that was what I knew. I knew how to build software. I knew how to test software. Application security is basically just testing software, right? And then eventually I founded a security company, and we'll sort of get to that sort of at the end. But one of the important things I think for everyone to realize is most of us have a couple of problems which kind of hold them back from really engaging and sort of be the best of what you can be. And I think the first one really is imposter syndrome. I don't know if it's stronger in the security field than other fields. My own theory is other fields have very rigorous education programs and certifications. Like if you have your nursing degree, people respect you as a nurse and you're like, I'm a nurse, right? But we're kind of all over the place with security. Yeah, there's little certifications here and there, but like who's an expert? You know, people are self-proclaimed experts. And sometimes I think the people that are very, you know, confident and assured of themselves maybe don't have imposter syndrome, and that's like the minority, and most of us do. So I had to get over my imposter syndrome. I still feel like I have a little bit of it, but there was a good 10 years that I had to kind of get over that. So if you feel like, you know, you can't do the job, or maybe you can't take an opportunity because you're not good enough, go for it, right? Go for it. Try to blow through it. I know there's whole talks on imposter syndrome. I just wanted to cover it here, but it is a big thing. And the other one is the fear of public speaking. I've been public speaking now for almost 20 years, and still I get the butterflies when I get up places. Am I going to mess it up? Did I plan things well? Am I going to connect with the audience? And I think a lot of people have a fear of public speaking. So these are things that I think the majority of people have. And just as an example, it wasn't until 2007 that I first spoke at Black Hat. I felt that this was my presentation from 2007, static detection of application backdoors. And even though I had done research and I had spoken at some little cons, I felt like Black Hat was like the main stage for a security professional, and I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough to do it. And eventually I got over it and did it. So take the leap. You know, if you have something interesting to say, you know, submit and go for it, right? Maybe start at smaller cons to get started, your local con, but if you have any urge to share your knowledge, which I hope you all do, that's what science is, right? We build upon all that we do. We make it better for all of us. I urge you to try it. Do some research or just whatever you figured out. You know, it doesn't have to be, you know, heavy duty vulnerability research. Whatever you've explored, whatever knowledge that you think you want to share, go for it. The other one is you have to take risks, right? You know, your career is really going to be stunted if you don't take any risks. And this is an example of a risk I took back in '98. Me and my compatriots at the Loft got invited to speak at the US Senate, and we had never been in a federal government building ever. We didn't know what this was. Like, we didn't know what Senate testimony was, right? Are they going to lampoon us, right? Are they going to make fun of us? They're going to say we're the bad people, we're the evil people. But we took the leap. We said, let's just try to make the best out of it. Let's just try to do our best job we can and take that opportunity. So this obviously is an extraordinary opportunity. I'm very glad we did it, but you'll see that you have little opportunities all the time where you're going to make a decision whether you want to try something or not, whether you want to go take a job, whether you want to work with a particular team. And some of these things, like, you know, frankly, even networking, you know, take you out of your comfort zone, like going to a meetup. You know, a lot of us, I think, are, you know, fairly introverted, and it takes effort to network, right? Like someone described it once to me it's like exercise, right? Like you kind of push it off, you don't want to do it, it takes work to do it, and then when you're done exercising, you feel good about it, right? You feel better, you feel healthier, you're glad you did it. You know, sometimes, you know, social interaction or networking for people who are introverted is work, right? It doesn't come naturally, you have to work at it, but there's huge benefits to it, and you'll feel good after you do it. I still do that. I go to a meetup, and I'm like, I don't want to talk to all these people. I just want to, you know, hide in the corner and talk to my one friend that I'm meeting here. But then I go and I talk to people, and I feel good that I did because I meet some new people, made some connections, and you know, networking is obviously important, as Kimberly was saying. The other thing is, like, in our profession, we have to always be learning, and there's like a million different learning modes, right? There's formal education now, right? You can actually get a degree in security. You can get a certification, take formal training. You can take the training like we have at conferences. But you'll find that you need to augment that with a lot of self-learning, picking up books, reading books, doing tutorials, and learning from other people one-on-one. I was lucky enough to have a few mentors early on that, had just been a few years further down the road than I was. It wasn't like they were way, way down the road. And they, one-on-one, shared their knowledge with me. So if anyone's willing to one-on-one help you out, take that opportunity to do it. One of the really cool things which we do at Veracode, my company, is hackathons. And if your company doesn't do this, it's a great learning experience. So the way we consider hackathons is it's 3 days. Everyone gets time off from their regular day job, and they can propose a project to do solo or with a group of people. And the whole point of the project is to learn how to do something, right? Maybe you're going to learn how to solder. Maybe you're going to learn how to do SQL injection. Maybe you're going to learn how to program in Python, right? You have an objective, you get together with a group of people or by yourself, and you do it. And so hackathons can be fun, and a lot of times we end up building features for our products because people are like, I want to just try machine learning on some data set we have in order to learn, and it ends up becoming a feature. So I would say go back to your company, and if there's no kind of hackathon type concept, push for that. The other thing is a lot of companies have training budgets. Find out about the training budget. If you're going for a new job, look to see if they have a training benefit. Look to see that they'll send you to a conference. That's the kind of company I would want to work at, a company that would want to fund my education to continue. So that's just an important part. And Kimberly talked about networking here at Black Hat. I'm a big proponent of the hallway track. Just bumping into people and asking them, what are you working on? What do you think is cool right now? You can have great conversations, and you can practically learn as much from the hallway track as you can from going to a presentation. If you find someone with a common interest, that's something that maybe you're working on. And like Kimberly said, we're all technical here, right? Everyone here is technical. You can talk to anyone here on a technical topic, and they're probably interested in talking with you about that. So I would definitely reach out and have conversations. If you don't know anybody at the Tater Tot reception, ask them what are they here for? What are they here to learn? What are they doing? And then you can go home and you can do this at local small cons. Most cities have meetups that are either security meetups or somewhat related to security. Maybe it's it's an IoT meetup or something like that, where there will be some people there that you can learn from, because security is multidisciplinary, right? You have to learn about the things you're trying to secure. So that's another good way to meet people. And the other thing is, if you're ever going to start a company, you have to know a lot of people, right? You're going to have to know people to attract to work with you at your company. You're going to have to find like-minded people, especially when you're building your culture in the beginning. You're going to have to know people, and you're going to have to convince them to come work with you, right? The only way to do that is to first meet them and understand that they might be interested to come and work at your company with you and be on your mission. So networking is critical if you want to start a company. And you'll also meet people that aren't exactly like you. Maybe there are people that are software developers, or God forbid, salespeople. You're going to have to meet a well-rounded group of people. So if you meet you go to an OWASP event, you might meet people that aren't all security people. The other important thing is to find your niche within security. I found application security something I liked doing, something that I was good at doing. You can't do it all, right? I don't think anyone can really be a generalist. Like even someone who's a CISO, who's in charge of running a whole enterprise organization, who has to be a generalist, will be better in some things than other things. And certainly if you're an individual contributor, practitioner, you have to focus. So what's that thing you like to do? Is it malware? Is it reverse engineering? Is it DFIR? Is it social engineering? Is it network security? Is it AppSec and the SDLC, or is it app pen testing? These are all different niche areas, and you probably are going to have to go deep in some area to have a successful career that you can build upon over time. And then, of course, you can switch over, but start thinking about what's that thing that really gets you going. Hardware is obviously a hot area now. And then I guess you have to pick whether you want to be on the red team or the blue team, right? But you can go back and forth, and people who have a little bit of both knowledge and who've tried both sides, I find very, very valuable. I started off on the hacking side, on the red teaming side, trying to figure out how would I break a system. And then when I went over to IT security, I used those skills to understand how to protect systems. So there's a yin and a yang to it, right? The other thing I want to talk about was sort of products versus services. And security, there's obviously a lot of products. You can work at a product company. You can be a researcher. You can be an engineer. You can be a support person. You can be a consultant that works with the product and have a product viewpoint focused on solving things with technology. Or you can be a services person who uses other people's technology. Maybe you're a consultant. I find that there's benefits to going back and forth between these two things. My 4 or 5 years as a consultant prepared me to start a product company because I started to understand what are the pain points that needed to be solved with technology that no one was solving with technology. So consulting you might not want to be a consultant forever or some sort of services person forever, but I think it's an important way to learn from your your customers, and you'll find problems that then you can solve with technology. And if you're at a product company, it's always good to figure out what services go around that. So I think of security as tools and people doing stuff. And I think every single vertical you can benefit from moving between those two things. So now's the part of the presentation where I talk about blockchain. That's just a joke. We're not going to talk about blockchain. Because I do want to talk about starting a cybersecurity company. So this is something that I don't know really how I sort of either lucked into this or was pushed into this or it happened. I think it happens for a lot of different ways. In my case, I was a consultant, and I saw that there really needed to be a product solution for something. And something really needed to be automated, and started to work on experimenting. How do we automate? And in my case, it was automating code reviews. I was doing lots of code review, and it was just so boring. And I said, there's just not enough code review people to go around, right? There's a lot of software. There's more developers than there are people. So I saw a problem. I saw an opportunity to take the knowledge of expert code reviewers and build application security technology to sort of solve that problem. But so that was sort of the background in my mind. But the push that got me there was I got laid off. And I got laid off with a bunch of other people. And this was after our company was acquired, and they didn't want everything that we were doing. And so I got a little bit of a push to say, like, what do I want my next job to be, right? What do I want to do? Do I want to do consulting again? Do I want to work at a product company? What do I want to do? And this was back in 2005, 2006, where the startup ecosystem isn't like it is today. And it was a little bit harder. But I said, if I'm ever going to give it a shot, if I'm ever going to start my own company, I should just do it now. because I have an idea, I'm out of work, and now is the time to do it. And there's never really a good time. Like I had a mortgage, I had kids. People say, well, it's easy when you're young because you're single. The statistics show that age 40 is the median age for successful founders, right? Because they do have some experience or under their belt. So if you have the urge to do it, I say, go for it. And I just want to talk about, some of the things that I've seen. I didn't get the benefit of some of these things because I sort of had to do it the hard way. But I've seen recently, because I've been part of, going to alpha investor pitch challenges, and I've talked to people at incubators. I've done some advising at incubators. There is like great resources now for people to start companies. So if you have an idea, the most important thing is to go to talk to people about it and tell them your idea. Pitch your idea. Don't worry that someone's going to steal your idea and go do it, because it's not going to happen, right? The biggest part of starting a company and building a company is execution, right? You can have the great idea, but you have to be passionate about it, you have to be driven, and you have to work on it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. That's how you build a company. You don't just like take someone, super secret idea. So the best thing is to talk to as many people as possible. Go to networking events, find these pitch challenges, find the incubators in your city, and go apply to be in the incubator. You're just going to learn something from that application process. If you get rejected, ask them why. Why? What am I missing? Right? They're going to say, like, there's no market for what you're building. It's cool technology, but no one wants to buy it. So maybe rethink your idea. But the really important thing is talk to potential customers. And this is where being a consultant or having some knowledge, it's getting really dark in here. Is there a surprise that's going to happen? So the most important thing is talking to potential customers. And this is where the benefit of being a security professional helps, because someone is your boss. If you're at an enterprise, you're doing work for somebody. So if you have an idea, talk to them about, what do you think about this kind of solution to this? Or if you're a consultant, talk to the people you're doing work for. That's really the most important thing out there, is to get feedback from people. First, customers, and then from people who are knowledgeable investors, right? You don't want a dumb investor, right? Because they're not going to help you understand why are they investing, right? Why are they investing? Do they really believe in what you're building? And I've made a couple of angel investments in the last few years, and it was because I saw what someone was building, and I really believed that it was a unique, great solution. And because you invest in what you know, right? So I'm investing in security stuff, not financial products. So that was basically my presentation. I'll be around if someone wants to talk to me, tweet at me, email me. Happy to have a conversation with you. So thank you very much.
Okay, the next person who's going to take the stage has actually been covering information security for almost 20 years. She is the executive editor for Dark Reading, and she's going to take you through some of the briefings that, from an editorial perspective, she thinks are really worth checking out. So I'd like to introduce Kelly Jackson Higgins.
Thanks for not giving away my full age. Yeah, good evening. Rich was asking me how many years I've been doing this, and I said, close to 20, that's all you need to know. Anyway, welcome. I know it's actually 5 o'clock happy hour, so I appreciate you grabbing your coffee and coming in to listen to a little bit about what we think are some of the can't miss sessions. The tough part about this, as Kim mentioned earlier, is there were 999 submissions, I think, for briefings. So they picked over 120. So what I tried to do was pick what we think at Dark Reading, what we've kind of looked at, what we've written about as potentially really interesting representative types of talks, as well as some kind of quirky ones that maybe you wouldn't think would be interesting. So if that makes any sense at all, I'm going to walk you through the briefings that we think you should go to. And basically what I've done is I've not ranked these. They're in pseudo-chronological order. I'm probably going to get myself some emails from people later who were not included, so I'm prepared for that. We're not going to make everybody happy here, but the bottom line is we want to pick some kind of different talks that you might want to check out. Oops. Okay, and the clicker is not working for me, so hold on. Oh, there we go. So first and foremost, you can't miss the keynote. Parisa Tabriz, Director of Engineering at Google, is probably one of the more interesting and well-regarded and accomplished women in this industry right now. Parisa oversees Chrome security, which in itself is pretty impressive. She also oversees their Project Zero security team, which you've probably heard of, who does a lot of cool things. She's been in InfoSec at Google for more than a decade. And a little fun fact I learned about her, when she was a Google Google intern, she developed a web vulnerability detection system for Google's products. So surprise, they kept her on after that. So she's already very accomplished early in her career at that point. Her keynote, which we don't have privy to, but I can tell you what I understand it's about, is she's going to sort of talk about the complexity and pervasiveness of technology and how that challenges how security keeps up with it. So she's going to talk about what she has like 3 points she looks at to sort of attack it. One is what she calls principled pragmatism. Another one's openness. And then third, in her title, optimistic dissatisfaction with the status quo. And she's going to talk about 3 different projects that she's involved with right now that are kind of advancing security at scale. So you'll get to hear from her firsthand of some things she's doing at Google that are going to help sort of move security forward. The other thing she will be doing is sort of doing a call to action to the industry on how to advance security. So it's definitely worth checking out. That's Wednesday morning at 9 at the Event Center, so do not miss that. The Black Hat keynotes are always excellent, and she's going to be an excellent one as well. So you did hear probably a couple mentions today of speculative execution, side channel vulnerabilities. That was a huge news item this year earlier. Basically the side channel vulnerabilities that were discovered in Intel and other microprocessors were kind of one of the most consequential, I'd say, vulnerability disclosures we've had in a while. It really did open the door for some of the hardware holes and fears we had about vulnerabilities kind of came true. Basically, those vulnerabilities affect everything from endpoints to the cloud environment, really based on a design flaw in microprocessors that affect pretty much all computers worldwide. You probably heard something about this or are working on it in your own organizations. Basically, a method that's used by most processors to sort of work on performance or optimization was actually exploited. So it would allow an attacker to read sensitive memory, system memory, things like emails and passwords and encryption keys. So this basically affected everything from Intel to AMD to ARMS processors. There were 2 attacks you probably heard about, Spectre and Meltdown. But what I like about this session was it's kind of a backstory session. So you have Art Mannion, who's the senior vulnerability analyst at CERT, Carnegie Mellon, Eric Dorr, GM at Microsoft's MSRC, Matt Linton, chaos specialist, which I learned meant he's an incident response at Google, and Christopher Robinson, who is principal program manager at Red Hat. They're going to talk to you about how all these vendors for about 6 months are working together, and service providers on this vulnerability disclosure on how to coordinate their disclosure and do mitigations. Unfortunately for them, their time frame got cut short because it got leaked to the press, not to us, to another press organization, and we all wrote about it. And so they kind of had to scramble at that point with their coordination. So they're going to give you kind of a behind the scenes story of what those months were like from the perspective of these big players. And that's something we rarely get in the industry. So I'm actually really looking forward to that one because it's going to give us some insight, I think, on how that process had to happen. So there are other talks about Meltdown and Spectre that'll be great technical talks, but this one, if you kind of want to get an inside look at what the industry has gone through to mitigate it, I think that would be really useful. So that one's Wednesday afternoon. So this talk, Lessons from Virginia, Comparative Forensic Analysis of Wind Voting Machines. If you were at DEF CON last year by any chance, you might have gone to the Voting Village hacking competition. And within, I think it was 90 minutes, 2 hackers had broken into voting machines that they had sitting in there. And one of them was Karsten Sherman. He's the associate professor at the IT University of Copenhagen. Obviously, the integrity and security of US elections right now is kind of top of mind for people. There's concerns that attackers, not just Russia, but other attackers are going to try to do something during this election season and ongoing to sort of plan disruptions and targeting what we know are pretty vulnerable systems. So what's kind of cool is that Karsten's going to basically demonstrate here at Black Hat how he broke into the WinVote machines. He's going to show a demonstration of it. When he did it, he found on those machines there was real election data and voting data still sitting on them. So those are kind of easy marks. That was probably one of the weakest security-wise voting machines out there. They had, for example, XP Service Pack 0, which is still a thing. Wi-Fi and RDP were enabled by default, had old web security protocol, and the amazing password of ABCDE on all the machines, like built in. So it wasn't too hard to break into them, he's going to show you, but he did develop an exploit, use an exploit on Metasploit he's going to demonstrate here. In the past year, he got 8, I think he has 8 machines now he bought on various places on eBay, same exact model, different years. He's been sort of looking over them and sort of doing autopsies on them, as I described it. So he's looking to see what's on those machines. He wanted to see if there was any signs of election tampering or vote tally tampering. And so far, when I talked to him, I guess it was about a week and a half ago, he hadn't found anything like that. But what he had found on one machine was a bunch of MP3 files. It appears the machine was being used to record songs from CDs and play MP3s. We don't know why, but those are the kind of things he found on one machine. So I'm sure he's going to have a lot more to talk about. He didn't give away the whole farm to me when we talked, but he's going to really show how easy these things are to break into. And he's also going to talk about what the industry needs to do to move it forward, make things more secure on the voting side of things. So I think that's definitely worthwhile Thursday morning. So another talk on Thursday morning is a policy talk, and I think this one's really timely also because I don't know if you're aware, I guess it was about a year ago, the United Nations had sort of a working group on cyberspace norms, and they weren't able to reach sort of a consensus on what responsible behavior online was for nations and what was not. So we really don't have what they call cyberspace norms at this point. So, sort of since then, there's been this question of what comes next. And of course, the stakes are getting higher. We've had international incidents like WannaCry and NotPetya, and of course, election hacking and power grid threats. So since then, there's a commission called the Global Commission on the Stability of Cyberspace that's been meeting, and they've been working on things like setting those norms, protecting critical infrastructure and electoral systems. And the key members of this commission are going to be here to talk about their work so far. And I think that's really well timed. It's also, as you can tell by the list of people, and they're pretty impressive names if you recognize them. They're going to kind of update what they're doing and talk about what other entities are doing. But I was definitely caught my eye seeing the names on here. Christopher Painter, who's a former coordinator for cyber at State Department, also the former White House Senior Director for Cyber Policy, and he was previously the acting cyber coordinator at the National Security Council. He's on the commission. James Lewis, who's a well-known policy expert. He's also the Senior VP at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. And Jane Hull-Lute, she's actually a UN official and former Deputy Secretary of the DHS. And then, of course, Jeff Moss, who founded Black Hat and DEF CON, is also on this commission. So it's going to be a really good, I think, worthwhile thing to tune into, because I think we all kind of need to know what the next step is as we see more threats hitting more dangerous targets. So that one I think is definitely worth checking out. So many of you have probably heard of Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek, famed car hackers. So these guys their talk on Thursday on applied self-driving car security is taking the work they did before and now moving it towards autonomous vehicles. They're both working for a company called Cruise Automation, which manufactures self-driving cars. So these guys, if you don't know their history, back in 2012 at DEF CON, they demonstrated, they had videos of what they did to a 2010 Prius and a 2010 Ford Escape. They were able to hack the sort of the automated features in those model cars back then, which seem kind of cutesy now when you see an autonomous vehicle, but you had the steering and braking, and they were able to sort of make it do wild things. But they had to have physical access to the car then. They had to like have their laptops in the car and be connected to the CAN bus and all that. So that was kind of cool, but they got to go in the Today Show. But they didn't get any much attention from the car manufacturers at the time, because the whole idea was, well, you have to have access to the vehicle, you have to be able to, it's very technical to do all this. This really wouldn't happen. So they thought, okay, well, what if we could do it remotely? So in 2013 at Black Hat, they wrote a paper, had some research they had done called The World's Most Hackable Cars, and remotely hackable cars. And they didn't actually do a demo, but they had gone through like all the specs in these vehicles and were able to come up with how we could exploit those features. So at the time, the 24 Jeep Cherokee was the top of the list. So what do you think they tried to do a year or two later? I'm sure you heard about their infamous Jeep Cherokee hack, where they remotely controlled a vehicle while someone was driving it, sitting on Charlie's living room couch about 10 miles away from the vehicle, and sent poor Andy Greenberg off into an exit with the car dying on him and crazy stuff coming up on the radio. So they basically proved that they could hack a car remotely. So now they're going to look at autonomous vehicles. Now they've been very close to the vest about their research. I'm supposed to talk to them this week, but I can't say anything before their talk, so I can't tell you all the details, but it's going to be, what I understand, it's going to be a talk about, sort of the possible vulnerabilities, the good things about why autonomous cars are a little bit harder to hack, and what's easy about them to hack and what's not, how to secure them. So that's the idea. They're going to sort of look at the whole big picture. And then the other thing about them that's important to know is these guys put on a really good, fun presentation if you haven't seen them talk before. Sometimes they wear 80s era Adidas tracksuits. So if anything, it's worth seeing that. So that one is Thursday at noon, 12:10, excuse me. Now this next talk is a little more serious, as you'll hear. It's called Last Call for SATCOM Security, and the last call is kind of ominous, but it's actually for a reason. Ruben Santamarta with IOActive, it was 4 years ago at Black Hat that he scared the heck out of the security industry when he talked about how he found major vulnerabilities in satellite equipment that he could use to kind of hijack and disrupt communications links to airplanes, to ships, military operations, and industrial facilities. So flash forward 4 years later, he's proved it out. He was actually able to successfully hack into an in-flight airplane's Wi-Fi network and the equipment on that plane from the ground. So he is going to talk about that, demonstrate how he did it, and he's also going to talk a little bit about how he was able to take the satellite equipment and kind of make it become a sort of malicious RF hacking tool. So it's going to scare you half to death and want you to hitchhike back from home rather than take your flight back. But it's totally worth it. He's a really smart researcher. He's done some really great work, and this is sort of his culmination. And he said he called it Last Call because he feels like the satellite industry needs to pay attention. So I think that's definitely a worthwhile talk, and that's on Thursday at 2:30. So this next one's a little bit funky or quirky because some people might think, oh, that doesn't sound like a big newsy one, but Catch Me, Yes We Can, Poning Social Engineers Using Natural Language Processing Techniques. This one caught my eye because it's kind of looking at a new way to detect social engineering attacks like phishing. And as you know, phishing is not something you can patch for or you can prevent, and you can train users 9 ways, a million different ways, and people still fall for phishes all the time. So what they're doing here is they built a tool that uses semantic analysis of the text to determine whether it's malicious. So they basically focused on the natural language text in the messages. Their premise is that a social engineering attack either asks a question that elicits a private answer from the victim or makes them do something. So they sort of took that and they tested on 200,000 phishing emails and legitimate emails. And they're going to release their tool, which is really neat, so you can actually use it on your own and test it out. And what I like about it is it's kind of a fresh look at phishing detection. And which obviously phishing is the most effective initial attack vector out there. But it's kind of a fresh look at social engineering and phishing. So I thought that was kind of a cool talk, and they're on Thursday at 2:30. It might not be one that you might think of, but it might be a different one to check out. So James Kettle at Portswigger Web Security has done some really cool research on, he found what he calls sort of he's kind of characterizing it as a design flaw in web caching and web infrastructure design. He was able to take control of a bunch of popular websites. We're talking US government, cloud platform provider, video games, online stores, as well as exploit some web frameworks with this vulnerability he found. And basically, so when you visit a website, you get infected, or you can own that user on the website. And he's going to explain more detail. He didn't give it all away beforehand, but it's actually really interesting work on the web side of things. Actually, the other side story to this is when he was doing the research, he accidentally stumbled upon a flaw in an API that's used in Mozilla's Firefox infrastructure that let him take partial control of tens of millions of Firefox browsers with the attack. Mozilla basically fixed that thing within 24 hours after he told them. So it's fixed. This was back in January. But he's going to spill the details on that as well as on the web caching stuff. It's really interesting because people kind of forget about web caching. So I think that's going to be an interesting one as well. And that's Thursday at 3:50. And the next one's kind of a fun one because I feel like voice assistants are kind of like all the hot topic now with all the, Alexa commercials and Google Voice commercials. This one covers Microsoft's Cortana voice assistant, which is enabled by default in Windows 10. So these guys last year, Amikai Schulman, Ron Markovich, Tal Berry, and Yuvan Son, last year they found an exploit that let attackers basically take over a locked Win 10 machine, doing a combination of voice commands and some network configuration stuff to deliver malware to the machine. But they're actually talking about a new vulnerability in the same system called Open Sesame that lets you actually also run code. So you can not only take over the machine, but also run code on it. And this was patched by Microsoft in June. But basically it lets an attacker sort of get access to sensitive files, browse online and launch arbitrary execution from the internet, gain elevated privileges, and apparently antivirus and IPS do not detect this. So they're going to talk about that and also how to protect a Cortana system from this type of attack. So I think that's pretty interesting. And again, because voice assistants are kind of cool, even though we're not using them a lot yet. And that's on Wednesday at 4 o'clock. So the hardest thing was there's a whole new section, a track now called the community track. And there was no way in heck I could pick one or two of those because they're just really all sound really, really good. As you know, or some of you are new to the industry, you may not know yet, but you'll find out soon. This is a high energy, high stress industry, has its share of human challenges, good and bad. These talks basically cover everything from mental health, inclusion, substance abuse, to good things like career development. And what I like is it's by the community for the community. There's a lot of personal stories here, people giving their firsthand experiences, sharing their stories, what they've been through. And I think that really helps. They're willing to share that with people, and I think the whole list looks great. So you might want to check that track for some of those type of ones. There's one on addiction, there's one on stress, and one on legal landmines within the industry, which is really important career-wise. There's one on burnout, depression, and suicide, and also on sexual harassment, assaults. These are really important issues and things that sometimes we forget about when we're doing our jobs, but I think this is a really neat section of talks that you should totally check out. And this is the Wednesday track. There's also on Thursday, there's some more. There's one on PTSD. There's also one on hiring and retaining women cybersecurity engineers. I was looking around the room going, oh, there's still not as many women yet, darn it. So the new people, that's a really great and timely topic. And there's also one on autism, autism specifically enhancing security workforce. So there's a lot of topics here that are, very personal topics, but I think really, really important to, the overall picture. So I think this whole track is amazing. So I can't pick one or any of them. And again, I probably missed, I know there's tons more talks that people want to see that I'm not talking about, but these are ones that kind of stood out for us. I also had a couple bonus picks. I didn't do slides for them because I thought of them later because they're things that one of them I'm actually working on a story on, but one of them was talked about this morning at the CISO Summit, and this is going to be a big one, I think, news-wise as well, kind of spinning off that theme of hardware vulnerabilities, It's called God Mode Unlocked, Hardware Backdoors and CPUs. Christopher Domas is doing that talk on Thursday at 11 a.m. That's going to be probably the next big thing. And he basically found that there's backdoors in hardware. He thinks there's going to be more that he's going to find too. So I think that's a really important one. The other one that is kind of something I've been interested in because I've been covering it from the early days is one on Triton. I don't know if you're familiar with the ICS malware attack that happened. It's been at least a year now. Triton, which was basically a malware family that went after a Middle Eastern energy target. There's a talk called How It Disrupted Safety Systems and Changed the Threat Landscape of Industrial Security Forever. Marina Krotofil, who's a really good security researcher in the ICS space, Andrea Carcano and Jonas Dragoni from Nozomi Networks are talking. They basically took the malware, reverse engineered it, and they're going to present what they think the attackers did and how they think the attackers pulled this off. So they basically attacked a safety system, a Schneider safety system in a plant. And these things are all really specific with specific firmware, information, and they had to do all this, basically intel to get that information. And then they're basically going to show you how it wasn't super hard to actually hack it once they got the info, but then the actual attack itself kind of fell apart because they didn't actually get a payload out. So nothing really horrible happened, but could have happened. So they're going to talk about sort of how the attack worked, why it potentially failed, and then they're going to also talk about some ways to detect and prevent it, which for that particular sector of the industry, if you're in the industrial space, that's a really important trend. And that's Wednesday, 11:15. So those are the ones that we picked. Now, I'm sure someone's going to be emailing me in 5 minutes that I didn't include theirs. But take a look at your agenda. There's a lot of great stuff. And like I said, it was really hard to pick. I just want to pick kind of a representative group of interesting things that we kind of thought would be totally worthwhile. Some stuff we're covering, some we're not. But I wanted to just load that with you. And then, anyway, enjoy your show, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Kelly. Okay, Kim mentioned in the opening yellow shirts, and I'm not sure everybody knows what those are, but they're actually people wearing yellow shirts. And we've got two guys who are going to explain exactly how those people are selected, what they do, and most importantly, how they can help you guys. So I'd like to introduce Neil Grifter-Weiler and Casey Bourbonnais. I'm going to leave their day jobs off, and they can decide whether or not they're going to divulge where they actually work. But Casey and Neil.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Keep it going. I could really use it. It's been a long weekend into the week. I'm just kidding.
So how many people are actually here to find Palm H?
Palm H? I couldn't find Palm H, actually. I had to ask one of the yellow shirts. But I guess we will introduce ourselves. We'll tell you a little bit about our day jobs and stuff. So you're new attendees, right? New attendee, who dis? So my name is Neil Weiler. I'm better known as Grifter within the community. I am a principal threat hunter for RSA during the day. By night, I am part of the Black Hat Training Review Board, the Black Hat Briefings Review Board, the DEF CON Review Board. I am run the contest area at DEF CON. I've written several books. I've been around the community. I've spoken at a lot of conferences. And you may not know it, but you might know of me as the guy who drank a roach out of a milkshake. That will be my legacy, is Trevor Forget. 20 years in this industry, I'm the roach guy.
I mean, how can I live up to that? So my name is Casey Bourbonnais. I am the CA manager for Black Hat. I am responsible for gathering all the, as we know, yellow shirts out there. I am in the industry. I do government work, pen testing, and some audit and NIST compliance work. But I'm here every summer with these guys at summer camp, and just loving being here.
So, so this picture is actually my first Black Hat US show. Kimberly mentioned Black Hat USA 2003. That is this show. This is the first show where I was in charge of the network. So 23 years old, Black Hat's like You should do this. I don't know they would do that today. The other two guys in the shirts were the entire rest of the network crew. Black Hat was like, you can bring whoever you want, bring a team of people. I brought 2 friends for a conference of several thousand people, 10 tracks, and all the rest. So that was a terrible mistake. That is also Jay Beal, a trainer who's teaching how to harden Linux down the hall. But the way we did things back then was it was just volunteer. Anybody could say like, hey, I'd love to help out. We'd say like, who do you know who can vouch that you're not a terrible person or you're our kind of terrible person? And then people would just show up and be like, I can stuff conference bags or I can lift that heavy thing. And we would be like, great, welcome to the team. And that's kind of how it went for...
Lots of bags.
Oh, yeah, lots and lots of bags. But it went that way for many years. And then one day, UBM came along and said, you know, guys, you're quite the different crew you were from approximately 10 years ago or so. We had, I think at the time, maybe 50 to 75 volunteer folks. But what we needed to do was carve that up. So we ended up with the terms conference associates, which is the team that Casey runs, and technical associates, which is the team that I run. We needed to scale. The show, as you can imagine, just like the rest of our industry, has continued to grow and grow year after year. So while we were doing that, we had to grow the support team around it. So in order to do that, it was no longer possible just to be like, I need 10 people who can come help me set up this network over here. We actually vetted folks out and we said, all right, you're going to be part of the NOC crew. You will be responsible for helping us get the network set up. And then the CAs would be in a less direct network capacity, but they weren't excluded from it. We still would drag them into setup as well. What it also did was it allowed for some formalization for UBM, which is the company that owns Black Hat. They're a big company, a big giant mega corporation type of thing. They like charts with direct lines to the folks that are part of their organization. So that allowed us to do that and give them that warm and fuzzy org chart. And fuzzy org chart.
So the previous picture the Grifter had, 3 people. So this picture here, we've grown a lot over the years. So this is our last year. We were green shirts last year. This year we're yellow, or I've heard banana. So, we're at about 140, mostly aspiring college students. We're just like everyone in the crowd. We love the InfoSec industry. We recruit from schools from all over the nation. We've got Marshall, we've got Polycal, we've got University of Oklahoma, University of Advancing Technology, UAT, Utah Valley University, Grand Canyon University. We've got kids all over the place, and that's what we love to do. We love to get kids involved, not just kids, students involved that love InfoSec. So some of our responsibilities, we're here to help you. That's the main thing. So when you see that yellow shirt in the hall, know that they're just like you. Feel free to ask them a question. Don't be afraid. We're here to help. So general directions, I need to find a room, we'll get you there. And if it's something more difficult, we'll find the answer for you. So please don't be afraid to ask. And then, basically anything else that's asked of us, we do. And for compensation, we all get a high five, right?
Yeah, the CAs get a hotel room, which they get a roomie. They're mostly students, so they're used to that kind of thing. That's some immediate networking. That's what's being provided there. And they get a high five. They get a challenge coin, and they get our undying love and affection.
Yep.
What's cool about the conference associates as well is that they do submit to be accepted. So there is an application. When it initially started, again, we went from a group of volunteers that mostly were our friends, and we realized very quickly that we don't have that many friends. And so we had to look outside of that group for some help. And so Russ Rogers, who's sitting here in the front row, love you, Russ. So Russ is a professor at UAT, the University of Advanced Technology in Phoenix. And he was like, well, I can get some students. And they got a bunch of students to write essays saying why they wanted to come to Black Hat and what they would gain from it. And then they took, obviously, the best essays, but also the students with the highest GPA. And these are folks who are working their way into our industry and giving them the opportunity to come in and interact with people who are in the place that they want to get to. So I think that was a really cool way of shoring up the defenses, as it were, with Black Hat. Now, the technical associates. So these are the people we have to contain in a little glass box. We don't allow them to interact with you. And there's a reason for that. They're my kind of terrible people. They are a group of 20 plus industry professionals. They range from VPs to your average network admin, and they're anything but average, honestly. This group is made up of, again, friends. They're people we can trust. Black Hat is putting the responsibility of stabilizing and securing the Black Hat network infrastructure in our hands. So they are people that we trust. They tend to be our friends or graduate CAs. So if we have additional space or requirement, we'll go to Casey and we'll get his recommendation for who should come into the NOC for that next coming year. So it's just kind of worked out really well, actually. It's been a great program, and having those folks come in and watching them grow in their careers year after year. I think, who's the longest CA that we...
I think we've got a guy here that's like 12 years now.
So 12
and the other thing, too, about this program is that it's been a launching point for careers. So we've had people come out and volunteer, put in the work, and next thing you know, they're interviewing on site and getting a job offer. We've had that happen. We've also had CAs go on to land their own training class. So from volunteer to that, it's all about being involved.
Yeah, it's cool to see them become speakers and trainers and stuff like that here. So the responsibilities of the technical associates, again, it's what you're seeing behind the glass in the NOC upstairs. So there is pre-con network set up. We do not use any of Mandalay Bay's network infrastructure. We replace everything. We do that because we need to trust our gear, and we need to make sure that we can secure it to the best of our abilities. We also will end up switching, like tonight, for instance. Tonight we will switch from the 60 to 70 plus training classes that are happening right now or finishing up right now, and we will flip those rooms to briefings, and we will pare the network down and switch our focus to the areas that they need to be specifically for briefings. The compensation for the technical associates, regardless of their status, in their personal lives, is they get a hotel room with a roommate. They get their flight paid for, and they get a high five. Oh, yeah. We're also tour guides. So you can come up to the NOC at any time, and there is a fishbowl-like environment where there's a glass partition. You can't go beyond that glass partition, but you can stand outside and look through the glass and see what's going on inside.
Well, you don't want to go behind that partition because that's dangerous there.
What's that?
It's dangerous behind there.
It is dangerous behind the glass. Don't go behind the glass.
They bite.
But we're going to be giving tours and basically like short NOC presentations. So we'll tell you about the equipment that we're using, why we chose it, how we respond to different types of attacks and that kind of thing. So Those are the times there. If you want to take a picture with your phone, go ahead. It's also up on the website. But really, what we want to talk about is like, okay, it doesn't sound like the compensation is great, you know, but we all get together because we're friends and we love it and we want to be part of something. That's the why. But why would you do it? Why do you care to continue to keep doing it? And really, it's about being part of something, being part of Black Hat. These guys work into their contracts when they take new jobs. Oh, I'm going to need off for this time frame so that I can go run the network at Black Hat. Or I can go be a conference associate at Black Hat as well. But genuinely what they're here for, what they gain, is access to you. Now you may think, oh, I'm only here for the first time, or I'm early in my career. You are already further than the students are. So when you see the yellow shirts out there, and you are walking past them getting directions or whatever, remember that they're not just some college kids we rounded up on the streets. They are currently studying in your field. They want to be where you are. So stop, talk to them, find out what they're studying, you know, give them advice. They want to get to know you and they want to know how they can get where you are. So please, please take that time.
It's just about family. We're all in the InfoSec community. We're all family, and so we're all here to help each other. And that's you know, just giving back.
So there you go. When you're riding to the top of the escalator, just stop for a second and say, "Hey, how's it going? What are you studying?" And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Grifter. Thanks, Casey. The next group, we're actually going to bring three guys up. At the beginning, again, Kim mentioned everything that we could have possibly thought of. She mentioned Arsenal, and that's something that is a really, really big and important part of Black Hat. This year, it's the biggest set it's ever been. It's in the Oceanside Ballroom. There are actually presentation stations. There's a full theater. There's a tinker area and there's a lounge where you're going to be able to meet the presenters, you're going to be able to spend time there, and you're going to see some pretty amazing open source tools. And we thought we would bring up three of the actual presenters of those tools and let each of them do a little bit of a talk about what you're going to see at their stations. So we've got Tony, Giannis, and Patrick, and they're going to each talk a little bit about their tools at Arsenal.
Okay, great. So thanks for taking some of your beer 30 to join us here. But my name is Tony Lee. I'm a senior technical director at Cylance, and my Arsenal talk is on Cybot. It's an open source threat intel chatbot. And a little known fact is that we actually use this chatbot at Cylance. It was developed primarily for our incident response practice, and then we realized that even if other companies develop a security chatbot, they like to keep it internal, they like to keep it to themselves, or they commercialize it. So I actually asked the powers that be, hey, can we open source this, make it available for anybody? Anybody from huge corporations that have lots of money, all the way down to your typical home user. And they graciously said yes. So how many SOC analysts or incident responders do we have in the room? I'm guessing we have quite a few. Yeah, okay, cool. So hopefully you are like us and you get tired of going to different resources online to try to do your investigations, especially if they're kind of shady, they're on the internet, you're just copying and pasting an encoded string to some person's website, and you don't like to do that anymore. But at the same time, you don't have a minion to do your work for you, you don't even have an intern, your budget is kind of light. Well, this is a perfect opportunity to let Cybot be your minion. So fortunately, in terms of components, Cybot's pretty simple. For software, it'll run on Linux, Mac, or Windows. All it needs is Python 3 and The underlying chat framework is AirBot. And then, of course, you download our Sybot plugins. It's all open source. It's on GitHub. So you can do your own code review. You can make sure we're not doing anything crazy. And then in terms of hardware, you can use pretty much anything, including a Raspberry Pi. So the original Sybot was developed on a Raspberry Pi. It was running out of my house, and it was actually our production Sybot. And then I realized that 600 people hitting Sybot at the same time, running on a Raspberry Pi on my home internet, was not the greatest idea, because when it went down, I would have 20 or 30 people pinging my cell phone, hey, what happened to Sybot? So we eventually moved it to corporate. It's running on a VM there, but it will run on a Raspberry Pi. And then in terms of the chat application, it's pretty flexible. It can run on, it can operate with XMPP, HipChat, IRC, Slack, Telegram, Skype. So if you use any of those, you should be able to set up your own Sybot instance, probably in less than an hour, just following our instructions. And then I'm not going to do a demo here, but I will do the demo at the Arsenal booth. And what it consists of is my laptop hardwired to a Raspberry Pi. There's no way I'm getting on the internet here. But Sybot is the sacrificial lamb. So the Raspberry Pi 3 will be on the Wi-Fi, and that's used for the API calls. So we can demonstrate how you would interact with Sybot. So I encourage you to come visit my Arsenal talk. I know it didn't have an honorable mention from any of the previous speakers, but it'll be a good one, so please come visit. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yannis. I come from Cyprus, a small Greek island, so a long way away from home. This is my fourth Black Hat, third one as a speaker at the Arsenal. And you might wonder why taking the time and the money to be here. My first Black Hat was in Amsterdam in 2015. And when I went there, I was really inspired by the people, about all the tools that they were making, so I wanted to be more involved. The reality is, I submitted in 2016 just to have the rejection letter and frame it in my room as a reminder to try harder. I got accepted. I thought I managed to full Black Hat. I thought I wasn't worth it for Black Hat. But the reality is, coming here, I had the time of my life. The ToolsWatch people helped me a lot, release the anxiety before my presentation. And throughout the year, the tool was also voted as in the top 10 tools of 2016. So that encouraged me developing even further. But what is this tool? I saw a problem when I was doing either penetration tests or red team assessments of not being able, of having the time when entering a company, physically entering the company, to perform some actions. I could find hardware that was doing automated exploitation, but that wasn't what I needed. If you're doing red team, automated is going to get code really quickly. So I started experimenting with Raspberry Pis, with Odroids, with BeagleBones, and writing my own code. And that's how the Raspberry Pi was born. Initially, it was designed for Raspberry Pi, but right now we're at the point that it can run on every micro device, so you won't have any problems with that. And this allows us to do fun assessments like this one, that we never get questioned if we go dressed as the paper guy, and we can leave the Raspberry Pi in a hidden bottom in a company for a long period of time. As I said, I was here in 2016, so why am I back again? We have many new developments, and this is going to be released tonight. This is our new command and control server. It wasn't in any previous versions. It's also a reporting server, so the Raspberry Pi communicates with the command and control. You can see the results coming in real time. we are releasing new attacks such credentials relaying. So you can see credentials when you are remotely and the Raspberry Pi is in the field. And it's very scalable, very easy to add new devices. And the whole trip of the Raspberry Pi allowed me to see the vulnerabilities, to see the problems and the limitations of other devices. And right now I have designed my own device, which is going to be shown. All the demos are going to be on the new device. It's a new PCB. So it was a really fun trip. But in any case, the code can run either on your Raspberry, on your BeagleBone, or your Odroid without any problems. If you want to see more details, I will be at the Arsenal Theater tomorrow at 12:30. I'll be happy to see you there. Thank you very much.
Aloha, my name is Patrick Wardle, and I am the creator of Objective-C, which is a Mac security website with a variety of security utilities for the Mac. Basically, once I started doing research on the Mac platform, I'm an avid Mac user. I always joke that I've drank the apple juice. But I really kind of saw this niche or this gap where there weren't a lot of free open source security utilities. So I started to write a lot selfishly to kind of protect my computer, and then I figured sharing is caring, so I should put them online. So today I'm going to briefly talk about two. The first one is called Do Not Disturb, and it aims to detect evil made or physical access attacks. There's kind of an interesting story behind the inspiration for the tool, which in retrospect is kind of hilarious. I was at a conference in Moscow about a year and a half ago. And at the conference, I met this very beautiful Russian woman. And before I got to Russia, some of my government friends had said, Patrick, if a beautiful woman approaches you at a conference, she's going to be a spy. And I was like, wow, guys, thanks for the ego boost. Is that the only reason beautiful woman's going to be talking to me? And, well, apparently they were possibly right. She invited me out to dinner. Turns out, yes, she actually worked for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Moscow. And I remember while I was eating dinner, I could not help but think, what is going on with my laptop? Yes, it was a burner laptop left in my hotel room, but I had no way of knowing if someone was tampering with it. So this was kind of the inspiration for Do Not Disturb. And again, it tries to detect or thwart physical access attacks, which in my opinion are probably one of the best ways to access or hack a computer. If you have physical access, pretty much game over. So what Do Not Disturb does is it simply monitors for events that likely indicate that someone is messing with your laptop. So on the previous slide, we saw some examples of physical access attacks. On the Mac, it's things like plugging in a malicious USB stick, perhaps a Thunderbolt adapter that has an exploit, or perhaps they have a hidden camera in your room that captures your keystrokes, and then when you're out to dinner with the beautiful Russian woman, they just walk in and type your credentials and access your laptop. However, a prerequisite for all these attacks is that the lid has to be opened. So what Do Not Disturb does is it simply monitors for a lid open event, and if it detects that, it will alert you both locally and remotely. The next tool I want to talk about that I will also be demonstrating at my Black Hat Tools Arsenal talk is Lulu. And Lulu is a free open source firewall for Mac OS. Firewalls obviously monitor traffic. They're very powerful because they can generically detect, for example, malware on your system when it tries to connect out to either exfiltrate data or perhaps connect to a command and control server for tasking. About a year ago, one of my friends said, hey, Patrick, there's really no open source free firewall products for Mac OS. There's some commercial ones, but they cost, upwards of $50, and they're closed source, and they have suffered from a variety of security vulnerabilities. So I set about writing a firewall. I will be the first to admit it was way more work than I expected. I actually demoed an alpha of Lulu last year at Black Hat Las Vegas. So it's been about a year in development, but this year it's going to be released version 1.0. So if you're interested in hearing more about these Mac security tools, I have some other funny stories, please come to my talk. I'm also giving a full talk at Black Hat about building Lulu. And then we're going to kind of switch gears and talk about how to bypass Lulu and all other third-party firewall products as well. So if you're interested, or perhaps you're a red team, or a Black Hat hacker, I pick on these products, but I also pick on my own product. So thanks again, and I hope to see some or all of you at my Arsenal talk tomorrow. So thank you.
Okay, so that's just 3 talks or 3 tools out of the 90 that are going to be at Arsenal. So that gives you some idea of the variety of stuff that you're going to see. We have one last presenter tonight, and I think you heard, again, Kim mentioned this. There's a business hall here. We have lots and lots of sponsors who make the products, provide the solutions, and have the jobs that the community relies on. And especially important tonight is the sponsor for the reception that you're about to enjoy. I'd like to introduce Steve Lobenstein. He's the General Manager of Pen Testing Solutions for SecureAuth Core Security. And he's going to say a few words before we enjoy the reception. Steve.
So is everybody on overload after the day today? We're excited to be sponsoring the Black Hat Zero-Day reception tonight. If you're not familiar, how many of you in this room are pen testers? Quite a few. So quite a few of you then are probably familiar with one of our flagship products, Core Impact, which is a penetration testing solution that was built by pen testers for pen testers. If you're not familiar with it, basically what we do is we help you exploit security in network infrastructure, web applications, and in clients and things of that nature. We have a few different things going on we want to tell you about. For tonight, number one, we want to make sure everyone's aware we have a drawing for a $1,000 Visa gift card, so be sure to register for that. We have a Impact Lounge on the 3rd floor of the conference center in Banyan B. We invite you to come up and chill with us up there. You can hear some more about some of the things that we're doing. We're going to have food and refreshments both days available. We got some people speaking here, two talks. One's Effective Identity Security Testing with Minimum Stress by Bobby Kuzma. That might be a name some of you are familiar with. And our other talk's going to be on cybersecurity for E-enabled aviation and critical infrastructure around airlines, aircraft, and airports. And lastly, the Kudelski Party tonight at House of Blues, we're also a co-sponsor there. So you should probably be able to catch up with some of our people there. So everybody ready for a beer and a cocktail? All right. Enjoy the reception.